President Teodoro Obiang Nguema blames the military for negligence after 4 explosions rock a military camp in Equatorial Guinea. On Tuesday, Russia called on Washington and Tehran to take mutual steps and coordinate the return to the Iran nuclear deal. In Guatemala, indigenous peoples, farmers, and social organizations began 3 days of protests over the nomination of judges they consider corrupt. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm Gladys Quesada. Satellite images show the extent of the damage at a military camp in Equatorial Guinea rocked by the explosions. A total of 615 people were injured in Sunday's accidental blast in the Toma camp in the country's economic hub Bara that was devastated and buildings also blasted. Ivory Coast President Alassane Ouattara's party won a majority in last weekend's legislative elections. Official results showed Tuesday in a vote that raised hopes the country's recent violent tensions were behind it. Ouattara's RHDP won 137 of 254 contested seats, compared to 91 for opposition to parties in Saturday's poll, according to results published by the West African country's Electoral Commission. The vote passed off peacefully and for the first time in a decade include all of the country's main political players, providing hope that Ivory Coast has begun to emerge from the recent turbulence. It was a key test of stability following violence surrounding October's presidential vote, which was boycotted by the opposition and claimed 87 lives. Swarms of migratory locusts invaded fields of Kavango east and west at the weekend, destroying crops and other vegetation in their wake and diminished the last hope of a good harvest. The recent locust invasion in the Kavango regions follow a similar outbreak of the African migratory red locust, which attacked fields in the Zambezi region from August last year, destroying more than 5,000 hectares of green fields. Rundu Rural Constituency Councillor Paulus Mbangu confirmed the incident on Sunday, saying the locusts which started from Mukubwe constituency have spread to other constituencies, with some migrating to other regions. Mbangu said the locusts have been in the area for about a week.
The locusts at Ruga village in the Kavango West Kapago constituency, where they landed on.
And Sudan began inoculating frontline healthcare workers against coronavirus on Tuesday after receiving its first batch of vaccines last week, as health officials said. The country is the first in the Middle East and North Africa to receive vaccines through COVAX, a UN-led initiative that provides jobs to poor countries, according to children's agency UNICEF. The first batch to arrive in Sudan was comprised of 828,000 doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine, which are planned to cover 414,000 frontline healthcare workers across the country, according to health officials. Sudan has secured a total of 3.4 million doses through COVAX, which are expected to arrive in batches to the end of September.
Waves start on May 15, and 15% of the population will be vaccinated, which include Croatians coming in direct contact with the public, such as bank employees, police officers, transportation workers, public servants, and professors in school and universities.
Tunisia received its first major delivery of coronavirus vaccine doses this Tuesday, paving the way for the start of its inoculation campaign this week. Health workers will be given priority for the Russian Sputnik V jabs, which will be distributed among vaccination centers nationwide. The government had previously announced it was expecting an initial shipment of more than 93,000 doses of the Pfizer-BioNTech and AstraZeneca Oxford jabs from mid-February, but delivery under the UN-led COVAX initiative was delayed. The health minister said the country is set to commence inoculations on Saturday and aims to eventually vaccinate half of its around 11 million population.
This is the first shipment of 500,000 dose Sputnik vaccine. These are the first 3,000. Soon, we will receive the first 93,600 doses of the Pfizer vaccine via the COVAX mechanism. The first priority will be the frontline caregivers as well as people over 75 years of age. The second priority will be to continue and vaccinate 50% of the Tunisian population.
And we'll be right back after this very short break, so don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. On Tuesday, Russia called on Washington and Tehran to take mutual steps and coordinate the return to the Iran nuclear deal.
We believe it is perfectly possible to work out synchronous steps, simultaneous steps to be taken in stages by both the Iranians and the United States. If we deliberate on which side should be first to return to compliance, then this bargaining could go on forever.
In Italy, the Italian-Russian Chamber of Commerce stated that the country will be the first in the European Union to produce the Russian COVID-19 vaccine Sputnik V. The chamber signed an agreement with the Swiss pharmaceutical company Adyen and the Russian Direct Investment Fund in charge of marketing Sputnik V. Chamber of Commerce spokesperson Stefano Maggi explained that the Russian vaccine will be produced from the beginning of July in Adyen's factories in the northern Italian region of Lombardy. According to both sides, production of more than 10 million doses of the vaccine is expected before the end of the year. The Greek Prime Minister called for calm on Tuesday following clashes at a protest in Athens. The demonstration came after video footage went viral showing a police officer beating a man with a baton during a patrol to check that people were following COVID-19 restrictions.
Violence we all saw tonight in Athens must be the last ones. The life of a fellow citizen, the young police officer who was in danger, must be a wake-up call. In these moments, self-control and calm must prevail. I will not allow anyone to divide us. We will not let anyone turn us back.
The Director General of the World Health Organization urged on Tuesday to follow scientific guidelines to control the pandemic instead of taking shortcuts.
We have come so far. We have suffered so much. And we have lost so many. We must not squander the progress we have made. We have the tools to control the pandemic, but we can only do it if we use them consistently and equitably. Science, solutions, and solidarity remain our guide. There are no shortcuts.
This Tuesday, Palestinian Prime Minister Mohammed Stayeh warned that hospitals have reached over 100% occupancy as they struggle to deal with the third wave of coronavirus infections.
The third wave of the coronavirus pandemic continues to severely affect our Palestinian society, and hospital occupancy rates in some areas have reached over 100%. The occupancy rate of intensive care units exceeds 100% despite the doubling of numbers of units since the beginning of the pandemic. The number of cases and deaths are increasing on a daily basis, which forces us to strict, direct and unprecedented measures. In parallel to the deadly virus we are battling, we are also facing an increase in the virus of settlement, which is trying to undermine international efforts to preserve the chances of establishing a Palestinian state, as settlement activity has become an electoral card in the electoral debate between the various Israeli parties.
On Tuesday, Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman met Sudan's Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok and discussed developing bilateral relations. During the meeting, the two leaders reviewed Saudi-Sudanese relations in various fields, including financial support and investment projects Saudi Arabia pledged to Sudan, in addition to a number of issues of mutual interest. It was emphasized that the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is keenly interested in the security and stability of Sudan in order to achieve the aspirations expectations of its population. Saudi Arabia also welcomed the United States' decision to remove Sudan from its state sponsors of terrorism list late last year. Jury selection began on Tuesday in the high-profile trial of the former police officer accused of killing George Floyd, an African-American whose death sparked mass protests against systemic racism and police brutality in the United States and around the world. Former Minneapolis officer Derek Chauvin is facing second-degree murder and manslaughter charges in connection with Floyd's death. Jury selection had been scheduled to begin on Monday but was delayed for a day as prosecutors sought to reinstate a third-degree murder charge against the 44-year-old former police officer. A court of appeals has not yet issued its ruling, but Hennepin County Judge Peter Cahill decided to go ahead with jury selection, a process expected to take about 3 weeks, with opening arguments in the trial expected to begin around March 29th. And we have more stories coming up after this final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back. Guatemala is set for several days of demonstrations to reject the appointment of judges to the Constitutional Court. The Social and Popular Assembly of Guatemala announced on Monday it will hold several days of protests from March the 9th to 11th in rejection of what it described as the malicious election of that nation's Constitutional Court judges. From its Twitter account, the organization called on the population to join the mobilizations. President Alejandro Giammattei summoned the Council of Ministers for Wednesday to participate in the session where they will appoint a regular and an alternate magistrate of the court for the period 2021 to 2026. However, the Assembly has stressed that the appointment of judges represents co-optation of the courts, which seeks more impunity for those who steal from the nation.
Call to the whole country of Guatemala to pay attention to what is happening. As I was saying, we have a corrupt state that does not represent us, especially the indigenous people.
Because we will not accept the continued co-optation of the Constitutional Court by magistrates who are completely associated with corruption.
This Tuesday, mayors in Ecuador marched to the government palace in Quito to demand the payment of outstanding debts. The authorities of 221 municipalities of the country are demanding the executive branch deliver budgetary allocations, such as the reimbursement of VAT and other items. The mayors point out that the debt exceeds $1 billion, resources they stress are needed to attend to the needs of the population and also to guarantee access to COVID-19 vaccines. Despite the mobilization, the mayors indicated that they are willing to reach an agreement with the government to avoid an indefinite strike, but also criticized President Lenín Moreno for failing to grant aid at the midst of the pandemic.
47 by way of assets. The reimbursement of VAT, we accumulated debt of $1.53 billion that 17 million Ecuadorians need. We have told the former minister, and last night I told the new Minister of Health, the municipalities are willing to provide resources, if possible, so that the vaccine arrives in sufficient quantity and in the necessary time frame.
Venezuelan Vice President Delcy Rodriguez called for the United States government to reflect on its sanctions against Cuba and also to her country this Tuesday on participating in the inauguration of the 21st Cuba-Venezuela Intergovernmental Commission.
I call for the United States government to reflect as they go from failure to failure, to not repeat that path, to not cause more suffering to the people of Cuba, to the people of Venezuela. One of the forms of blackmail also in this criminal blockade is to put the food supply of the people of Cuba, of the people of Venezuela at risk, and the response to the blockade is our brotherhood.
Representatives of the governments of Venezuela and Cuba inaugurated the 21st Intergovernmental Commission on Tuesday to deepen bilateral cooperation. The activity is part of the work agenda that the Vice President of Venezuela, Delcy Rodriguez, is carrying out while in Havana on the occasion of the 20th anniversary of the signing of the Comprehensive Cooperation Agreement between the two countries. Through this document, Caracas and Havana continue to increase and promote cooperation projects in the areas of health, education, energy, science and technology, culture, defense and sports, among others. The Venezuelan Vice President will also meet with Cuban authorities and participate in multiple activities that seek to give continuity to the binational alliance.
Of the worst difficulties, we can continue advancing in the cooperation between our peoples. This Cuba-Venezuela cooperation is precisely in the heart of Venezuela, because it represents the missions and the great social missions. It means the support for very high-level social programs that undoubtedly directly reach the soul of the Venezuelan people. So for our population, it is a reason for happiness and celebration that despite all this blockade, we are here advancing in the ideals of Martí, Bolívar, Comandante Chávez, and Comandante Fidel Castro.
Members of the Peruvian military, older persons and police received COVID-19 vaccines on Tuesday as the country begins a new phase of its inoculation campaign a month after starting with health workers. The latest phase comes after the country received a batch of 50,000 doses of the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine on March the 3rd. According to the Ministry of Health, more than 24,000 of the 47,000 fatalities registered due to the pandemic since March 2020 correspond to the elderly. Nurses travel around the capital Lima on Tuesday, taking the vaccine to other adults in their homes, with 600 people over the age of 85 expected to be inoculated on the first day.
We have programmed to vaccinate around 811 military personnel in the entire integrated network management of East Lima, and at this point there are approximately 500 military personnel to be vaccinated. The armed forces of this detachment, Mariscal Nieto Regiment, have been with us since the first day of the pandemic, working in a coordinated. It is necessary to protect them so that they can continue to carry out interventions, be it tight operations and house-to-house interventions during home visits, accompanying us in the most difficult moments.
In Brazil, with 2 votes in favor and 2 against, the trial of former Judge Sergio Moros, accused of political bias against former President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva in the Operation Lava Jato case, has been suspended until further notice. The suspension came following a request for more time to analyze the case by Judge Cássio Nunes. The case was started by the second chamber of the Brazilian Supreme Court, formed by 5 judges. 2 of the judges, Edson Fachin and Carmen Lucia, voted in favor of Moros' acquittal. However, Judge Gilmar Mendes voted against, stating that the former judge and justice minister was not impartial in the conviction against Lula and stressed that politics cannot be done through criminal prosecution. Meanwhile, Judge Ricardo Lewandowski also voted against, considering that Moros' actions were illegal. The trial had been paralyzed since 2018 due to requests presented by Judge Gilmar Mendes. In Brazil on Tuesday, residents in a stronghold for the party of former President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, universally known as Lula, welcomed a ruling by a Supreme Court justice that overturns all the convictions brought against him as part of Operation Lava Jato and allows him to run for office again.
Now the truth is coming out that he, Lula, wasn't to blame. So I think they should cancel the process and clear his name so that he can be our president in 2 years.
Now, the decision by the Supreme Court restores the historical truth and will somehow help the Brazilian democracy to advance.
And we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and Telegram. For TeleSUR English, I'm Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.